Hi, good evening. Welcome along. This is the Transfer Show. Right, there's loads to get sorted out at Newcastle as well, as we know. So let's bring in our reporter Keith Downey, who covers that patch for us. Keith, obviously we're going to talk Alexander Isak in just a moment. First, though, Malik Thiaw. Now, we saw him leave Milan last night. So where's this deal up to?
Yeah, it's close to being completed. He, as you rightly say, travelled in from Milan late last night, just as darkness fell. He arrived in the northeast. Of course, we saw pictures sent to us from Sky Italy of him leaving the airport in Milan last night before coming in here. This is a deal that Newcastle have got over the line quickly this weekend, but it's a player that they have liked for a long time. They've paid £30 million plus £4 million in add-ons, and he's the central defender that Eddie Howe has been looking to add this window. So he's been having his medical today, Mike. We expect the deal to be finalised soon, and I think the hope is that he'll be able to take part in training, if not tomorrow, certainly by Wednesday, and Newcastle hope that they can have him in the squad for their season opener against Aston Villa on Saturday.
Yeah, OK. All right, let's talk Alexander Isak. We have to do that. Less than 3 weeks now until the close of the window. So what's your reading of the situation?
Look, I think the longer this goes on, the longer there is stalemate, so to speak, the more likelihood there is of Alexander Isak playing for Newcastle this season. Look, Liverpool came in for him 10 days ago, didn't they, with that bid of £110 million plus add-ons. It feels like it's been a long 10 days since then. Now, of course, as we know, Newcastle tried to line up a replacement for him. They thought Benjamin Sesko was that man. Instead, of course, he opted for Manchester United at the last moment, and it left Newcastle high and dry. I feel their options now, between now and the end of the transfer window, are getting less and less, and I think there's a huge question mark hanging over the Isak deal, because Newcastle will not allow the Swedish striker to leave and join Liverpool if they don't have a ready-made replacement lined up. As I say, the options are fairly thin on the ground, and as the days tick on, I would say it's increasingly likely that he will be a Newcastle player this season. Certainly for the first part of the season anyway. We'll wait and see what happens in January. But of course, with that, there's going to have to be a lot of work behind the scenes. Clearly not happy, Alexander Isak, but neither are the Newcastle United supporters. It feels like there's been a lot of bridges burned these last couple of weeks. They're not happy with his conduct, so a lot is going to have to be smoothed over behind the scenes for him to continue here and continue in a positive way, because he was a real fan's favourite. Think of all those Newcastle fans, Mike, who of course he reduced to tears at the cup final back in March with that winner against Liverpool. People have got Isak 14 tattooed all over their body. You see kids in the street everywhere in Newcastle with Isak 14 on their shirt, and I think for them, they just feel really let down by his conduct these last couple of weeks. So Eddie Howe's going to have to do his best man management skills with not just the player, but with the supporters as well, to ensure that they can move on from this. But look, there is still 3 weeks left. I wouldn't be surprised if Liverpool came in with another bid. But until Newcastle have a ready-made replacement, and as I say, they don't have many options left, until they get someone in, Alexander Isak will be going nowhere.
OK, what about Yoane Wissa? Will he be joining Newcastle?
Yeah, I'm just off a call literally in the last 5 minutes about that. Look, Newcastle remain at the table, very hopeful of getting a deal done. But again, this one's become a bit of a saga now as well. It's dragged on for a number of weeks. Brentford, probably in a similar situation to Newcastle with Isak. They don't want to allow Wissa to go until they get a replacement in themselves. Now, we know that they're in talks with Dango Outara, the Bournemouth winger. I think there's a potential, if they get him in, that they might soften their stance a little bit with Wissa. I think Newcastle would love to have him in by the weekend to try and involve him against Aston Villa, but it's a waiting game for them. I still think there's a high chance of this deal getting done, but again, it's a very protracted transfer, a bit like the Isak situation really. They're playing out very, very similarly, and look, Newcastle have been patient. It looks like they're going to have to still be a little bit more patient if they're to bring in Wissa. But remember, even if Wissa does arrive, that has no effect on the Alexander Isak situation. Wissa is the replacement for Callum Wilson. And if Isak was to leave, they would still need to bring in another replacement to allow Isak to go. So I've seen a few people saying, well, you get Wissa and that means that Isak will be allowed to leave. That's not the case. The two are completely unrelated.
No, so let's head back to St James's Park and our reporter Keith Downey. As the days count down in the transfer window, it's becoming more and more likely that Alexander Isak could stay. So how would that go down with the fans? Well, there's Keith. Keith, let's ask them.
Yeah, Mike, thanks very much. Yeah, that is the question, I think, on most people's lips, is how will the Newcastle fans deal with Alexander Isak staying? Should any potential move to Liverpool not materialise over the next 3 weeks? And of course, remember, if this does go through, it will be a Premier League record transfer. So it's not the kind of deal that's going to be done overnight. It might take a little bit of time. And that's why I'm saying as time goes on, I wouldn't say it's becoming increasingly unlikely, but I would say it's becoming increasingly likely that he'll be playing at Newcastle next season, unless Liverpool come in with an offer quickly and Newcastle manage to get a replacement lined up. But yeah, you asked me the question, how will the Newcastle fans feel? I suppose I'm better speaking to a Newcastle fan, and I've got Charlotte Robson here from the True Faith podcast. Charlotte, thanks very much for popping along to see us. We are really keen to get the fans' view on this, because I think it's pretty clear to see he's not conducted himself greatly, but would you welcome him back with open arms if he starts scoring goals at the start of the season?
Yes, we're fans of we're Newcastle fans. We want to see Newcastle winning. I think it's a really tricky one, because I think Newcastle fans are desperate to be behind Alexander Isak, and as all of this news has come out and all of this sort of drama has unfolded over the last few weeks, it's become really difficult to be like, it's probably going to be fine and we still really like him. He's training on his own. He's like, we understand that Eddie Howe's only finding out that he's in Spain through the media and things like that just doesn't paint him in the best light. But we really want to get behind our players. That's what we do as fans of this team. So I think if he can get his head down, score goals for us this season, and he stays, then yeah, of course we're gonna be okay.
Right, so the bridges haven't been burned too far just yet?
I don't think so.
I think maybe they have with some fans.
Yeah,
maybe you're just a bit more easygoing.
Yeah, I think for some people definitely, like some of the noise on social media and stuff is like he's, like persona non grata here now, like let him go, we don't want him here. He's still one of the best strikers in the world, so I do want him here. I want to see him thrive here. I want to see us kind of be able to rebuild that relationship if we can, if it's possible. But I'm always that kind of person.
I guess as well, with Hugo Ekitike joining Liverpool, a player who, of course, Newcastle attempted to sign here, how difficult would it be to see Ekitike and Isak lining up together at Anfield next season? And of course, remember, Newcastle's first home match of the season here at St James's Park is against Liverpool.
Yes, it very much is. Yeah, that would be a bitter pill to swallow, I won't lie. We were dead excited about Ekitike. I was really excited about Ekitike and Isak. Like, what could that look like? Up front, two class players up front. And then now it's like, will even one of them play for us? I think that would be really, really difficult. But it isn't necessarily going to be happening. Like, as you say, it's a big deal to get over the line. Not just for Liverpool, but for us. Like, we have to have a replacement. We do not have a backup striker. There just isn't anybody waiting in the wings for that position, so that plays a part in this whole deal as well.
You mentioned backup strikers, and we've been reporting for a number of days now that Newcastle are hoping to bring in Yoane Wissa from Brentford. Again, that's another protracted one. Brentford waiting for a replacement themselves. Yeah. What would you make of him as a backup striker, if you like, to Isak if he stays?
Yeah, backup striker to Isak, that would be fine, but I don't think Wissa is like necessarily a replacement for Alexander Isak. We'd need a bit of a different kind of calibre of striker, I think. So yes, we need somebody else there. We've got a lot of games to play this season. We've got Champions League. We've got hopefully some good runs in the Cup. We've got the Premier League itself. So we do need somebody else. We can't expect, if Alexander Isak is staying, him to play every single one of those games. It's just not going to happen. So we do need a backup striker. So that would be fine with me.
Malik Thiaw in today, having a medical. That was after the club clinched the deal with AC Milan at the weekend, £30 million plus add-ons. It looks as though it's close. He's having his medical.
Yeah.
You'll be pleased that there's a defender finally.
Yeah, very pleased. I'm just not going to count my chickens yet because I feel like this summer everything's been ripped from us as we've gotten excited about players. But yes, very, very promising. And kind of the whole Isak thing, I was thinking about this earlier. It feels so kind of sad for Malik Thiaw because we should be just dead excited about that. That's an excellent player coming from Milan, coming to strengthen our defence, something we've been saying we desperately need to do this summer, but it's kind of getting caught up in all the other noise, and that seems like a bit of a shame. But yes, very excited about that.
Let's mention the other noise, because this was the transfer window where, of course, Newcastle were set to strengthen, as you rightly say, as a Champions League campaign ahead of you, money to spend, but it's not really panned out. Look, you have got a couple of signings in, absolutely, but it's been difficult, hasn't it? How has this window been for the Newcastle United fans? Because it's been difficult for me reporting it.
I bet, yeah. Well, I started with brown hair. This is all just turned white. Yeah, it's been really disappointing. It's been really frustrating as fans. Oh, it's starting to rain as we talk about it. That feels fitting. It's just been really, it's just been frustrating. Players feeling like we're kind of being used as a pawn for some players and agents. Maybe that's not the case, but that's what it feels like. And it just has felt so like getting excited about players and then them going to different teams, Liverpool, Manchester United, all of these teams that have kind of been ones we really want to be competing with for so long, and we really feel like we are, and yet they're still pipping us to these players, so that's been really frustrating.
Despite all that, you're looking forward to the season starting this weekend?
God, I'm so tired already. Yes, I am. I'm excited because I think that drowns out a lot of the noise, doesn't it? When you get the football in front of you and you can see what's on the pitch, and actually we've got still, don't want to take away from the fact that we have some absolutely amazing players, and I'm excited to see them back in the Premier League.
Okay, well, it's Aston Villa away on Saturday, Newcastle's first game. Charlotte said her hair was brown before. My beard was brown at the start of this window. We're all going white. We're all going white. It's been difficult for the supporters. It's been pretty exhausting for me as well, Mike. It's been a long old summer covering Newcastle, I have to say.
Keith, look what transfer windows have done to Darmesh and me. I had a massive afro when they started. Thank you both very much. No, I didn't. Darmesh, right, you know transfer windows better than most. How do you see the Isak situation playing out?
I keep changing my mind about it because the later you go in the window, it's clear Newcastle United will want a replacement. The one thing they've got going in their favour with the Isak situation is that he's still got 3 years left on his contract. Now, this is going to be an almighty job for Eddie Howe if Isak ends up staying or going, both sides, because the replacement that they would have wanted potentially, or to play alongside Isak at the start, Ekitike, is no longer on the table. Benjamin Sesko, they went so hard on Benjamin Sesko, couldn't get that deal over the line. The Yoane Wissa one, as Charlotte and Keith were talking about there, is more to do with a replacement maybe for Callum Wilson, numbers-wise, rather than the Isak replacement. So now you've got to ask the question, who is the replacement for Alexander Isak? Who is out there? There's talk that they might be keeping half an eye on Nicholas Jackson. Is he ready to fill someone like Isak's boots? Very, very difficult. And so if he isn't to go, then the next job Eddie Howe's got to do is reintegrate him and make up almost, because he can't be pleased the way that Isak's conducted himself. Like they mentioned there, hearing that he's in Spain through the media. I mean, it's not ideal at all. So I haven't answered your question, have I? But it's I keep changing my mind. At the moment, stays. I'm erring towards stays at the moment.
Whoa, OK, interesting. All right. Hello again. Last part of the transfer show already. Now, Charlie Austin was at Southampton when Virgil van Dijk handed in a transfer request to push through a move to Liverpool. The striker says there are similarities with Alexander Isak's position at Newcastle. So reintegration does work then, Darmesh?
Yeah, I mean, it can. I'm going back to that interview that Keith was doing with Charlotte Robson earlier. As soon as someone starts scoring goals again, in the case of Isak,
exactly,
I think a lot of things can be forgiven, but it's going to... you can't rule anything out with the Isak deal. You could end up with a situation where he might even sign a new contract at Newcastle. You just don't know what can happen.
Love it. All right.